Jurassic Park is arguably the best blockbuster film ever made, by the quintessential blockbuster director, a movie that captured the minds and imagination of a generation by being equal parts fun and intense, a roller coaster of a story that captures both the moments of real fear and the satisfying resolution of tension that comes from, well, a roller coaster. Not only was it an immense success at the box office, grossing over $1 billion when adjusted for inflation, but it ignited a cultural interest in dinosaurs that extends to this very day. Jurassic Park, decades after its release, is still a behemoth of merchandising and brand recognition, birthing everything from Jurassic Park backpacks and lunchboxes to butt plugs and barrel condoms. But most notably, it has spawned sequels that have varied wildly in quality, ranging from the above mediocre to the below mediocre to the below mediocre, but saved by nostalgia bait casting. But this video isn't about any of those movies. This video is about the best Jurassic Park movie. This is not about the first one.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Jurassic Park 3 had a brutal production. Director Joe Johnston, no, not Joe Johnson, no, that's Jack Johnson, there you go, was very open about the script being finalized like Frankie making a ladder to heaven. Same day edits, hordes of writers and contributors, and no direct guidance to take from the Michael Crichton books. To hear Johnston tell it, it's not the way to make a movie. Sometimes we were writing the things that we were going to be shooting that afternoon. It's stupid. But while the production was difficult and disorganized, the box office was also disappointing. The movie did gross nearly $400 million worldwide against a $90 million budget, but it made just over half of what The Lost World did, and it didn't get near the critical reception of the previous two films. The commonly held perception is that the first movie, and to a lesser extent the second, maintain a level of artistic integrity even though they're, at the end of the day, popcorn movies. Meanwhile, JP3 represents the move toward a schlockier, more on-the-nose style of action filmmaking, the Michael Bayification of the series, if you will. The film's mixed reception and below expected earnings ended up being one of the driving forces behind the lack of motivation and ambition for the long-rumored JP4, which eventually became Jurassic World. Side note, if you haven't already, go read the leaked script John Sayles wrote for JP4. It is batshit insane. A Navy SEAL hired by Hammond to steal back the DNA stolen by Newman gets captured by the new Swiss owners of Isla Nublar, held captive in a castle, and forced to train the dinosaurs using a radio frequency emitted from a chip in his head. But no, we got this instead.
I know why they wouldn't tell us what it's made of. What? That thing's part.
Bing bang bitch.
So Jurassic Park 3 made less money than it was supposed to, got mixed reviews, and pushed the series in a less prestigious direction, loomed over the production of Jurassic Park 4, which doomed it to production hell, and is seen as the weakest of the first trilogy by most people. But then, why is it better than the others? The story of Jurassic Park 3 starts with the classic, sacrificial first scene death to sate the masses' hunger for blood. First movie got and the second one got
a stranger from the outside.
Jurassic Park 3's opening scene takes a different approach. We see essentially nothing, not even a glimpse of a dinosaur. We get a boat full of bloodstains and an ominous shot of a man and a teenager floating helplessly toward an island we know to be wrought with danger. It's not as exciting as the first film's opening or as gruesome as the second, but it's easily the scariest, using the horror strategy of letting the audience imagine the peril that awaits rather than putting it on display. The island is there, and we know there's dinosaurs, but that's it. Also, it gives us our first "that guy was in house" moment.
Oh my god! My god! I want him!
Oh my ass!
It's the two scenes after this, however, that I think truly elevate Jurassic Park 3 above its predecessor. I would argue that the biggest weakness of Jurassic Park 2 as a film is it does nothing meaningful with Malcolm's character. Sure, we get his trepidation about going back to an island full of dinosaurs, and we see his concern for Sarah and Kelly, but these are all extremely boilerplate action protagonist traits. We don't know any more about Malcolm's inner workings by the end of the second movie than we did by the end of the first. Jurassic Park 3, on the other hand, really gets into Alan Grant's character post-Jurassic Park. his distance from Ellie, his social isolation and alienation within his own field. A man who was a world-renowned expert in his profession a few years ago is now more popular for the worst trauma of his life, forced to field endless questions about it, and in the most blasé destruction of a man's entire identity, is told after contesting the idea of going back to the island, quote,
I mean, once the UN and Costa Rica and everyone decides how to handle that second island, scientists will just go in and look for themselves.
JP3 has, for me at least, 3 relevant plotlines overlapping. The first is Grant's career crossroads and his soured relationship with the very subject he dedicated his life to before the events of the first movie. The second is the Kirby's marital drama. And third is surviving the island. There are also smaller ancillary plot threads like the raptor eggs, Grant and Billy's student-teacher relationship, and the fate of InGen's operation on the island, which is communicated exclusively through scenery. Now, I'll level with you here. I don't give a shit about the Kirby's divorce drama, at all. The only part of that dynamic I find interesting is the first scene where we see them together, during the dinner with Grant and Billy before they go to the island. I like the hindsight perspective, them being divorced and tumultuously based on the clues we're given, but still having to play act as a married couple for their ruse to work. It's a fun detail, especially on repeat watches, but beyond that, this whole plotline is dull. Credit to Willie H. and Tia Leone for playing a convincing pair of annoying exes. Their early interactions in the movie truly capture the horrifying hostage situation that's created when you have to hang out with exes who are clearly unhealthy, but also still into each other. And the, quote, happy ending, where it's strongly implied they're going to reunite, is the rotten cherry on top. But the more compelling parts of this movie are the ones that involve Alan Grant, obviously. Who he's become, and the discomfort of watching a man be non-consensually forced back into his worst nightmare is tragic. But the complexity surfaces as he interacts with his environment, seemingly at home around dinosaurs despite the trauma they've caused him. Confronting a T-Rex not with fear but with cool-headed expertise, identifying the Spinosaurus by fang, like Sherlock Holmes knowing a tobacco brand by its ash, and of course one of his most telling scenes. After being attacked by the raptor in the abandoned InGen facility, he stops mid-retreat to appreciate the raptor's unique intonation, noting he's, quote, calling for help. The way he says this is full of fascination and intellectual curiosity, even in dire circumstances. It says everything about who he is and the vast love he has for these creatures despite his protestation, and seeming cynicism about the topic of live dinosaurs. His character also receives a lot of texture through his interactions with other island captives, not the Kirbys. His relationship with them begins and ends with his rolling eyes at their stupidity and total absence of survival instincts. And while Billy is a serviceable character, giving Grant someone to act as a mentor for, even if these scenes are too few and lacking in impact, the one who brings the most out of Grant is Eric. A seemingly mandatory part of every Jurassic Park movie is at least one child character.
You practically told me to come here.
What?
In the first movie, the kids were mostly hapless victims of circumstance endowed with little agency save for playing hide-and-seek with the raptors, peekaboo with a T-Rex, and chicken with an electric fence. In the second movie, Malcolm's daughter is mostly petulant, but also seemingly death-proof, which renders some of her scenes meme-worthy, like the classic. This might surprise you, but that scene was not actually in the book the movie was based on. And don't get me started on the clone from the 5th and 6th movies. Zack and Gray from World are pretty insufferable, especially early in the movie when their characters boil down to doucherag and autistic, coded, and annoying. Eric, on the other hand, is an interesting character. His survival on the island is left mostly to imagination, so it doesn't feel as contrived as Malcolm's daughter kicking raptors, and he's given more agency and competence than the kids from the first movie, which makes him more compelling. But what really gives him depth is his opposition to Grant's perspective. When the movie starts, Grant is disillusioned with dinosaurs as a field of study, clinging to the inert nature of paleontology as a form of safety in response to his harrowing experience on Isla Nublar. He says as much to Eric when they discuss astronauts and astronomers. Now, I should mention here, this is not a philosophy entirely resulting from his time on the island. After all, he was a paleontologist long before that. But the island was a chance for him to see the subject he'd studied in theory, and the experience soured him on them. He doesn't like dinosaurs, he likes their bones. But, in a poignant exchange, Dr. Grant distinguishes the people who go into space from the ones who study it from the safety of Earth, astronomers and astronauts, asserting all Billy wanted was to be an astronaut. Eric agrees with Billy, contradicting Grant's identity as a safe observer and challenging the perspective that's hardened in the years since his trip to the other island. So Eric survives an island full of dinosaurs just like Grant did, but isn't jaded or fearful of dinosaurs because of it, in contrast to Grant, who is exactly that. These dueling perspectives in the face of similar circumstances present the audience with something we don't get at all in the first movie, a dissenting voice against Grant that we're compelled to agree with. It's not his expertise being questioned, it's his cynicism in the face of the dinosaurs he spent his whole career enamored by. In the first movie, we get a little bit of this from Hammond, but he's so consumed with ambition that his whimsy toward the dinosaurs comes across more short-sighted than admirable. And Ellie certainly shows more enthusiasm for the island than Grant does initially, but that's more general effusiveness on her part versus his reserved disposition. What we see in JP3 is that reservedness infused with fear created by trauma. Eric is not only the most interesting child character in the series, but he is the most effective foil to Grant, adding depth to the series' favorite. Alright, so the character building around Grant is great. Eric is an awesome character. But so what? This is Jurassic Park, a series about dinosaurs. So how do the dinos in this movie stack up to the others? Well, for starters, Spino is easily the best dino antagonist, even if you don't use the headcanon that the mercenaries shoot at its younglings when they first land the plane, which I personally don't ascribe to. I think it was just on sight.
Stop! Get out the way! No one can stop this plane!
Rexy from the first movie is amazing, but she's also a passenger in the film more than a driving force. She repeatedly stumbles into our main characters by accident and kills the most annoying character in the movie. She's a victim of circumstance at worst and a hero at best. But Spino? Nah, he's fueled by hate. Let's review. He gets shot at once and immediately makes them enemies for life. Brings down a plane, follows it after it crashes, then thrashes it like the occupants owe him money, zero diffs a T-Rex just because it got in the way of his vengeance, stalks the characters after they run, then defies God and physics by making no noise when he finds them, insta-kills a fence that was presumably designed to be dinosaur-proof because it stood against his holy mission to kill these fucking people, finds them again when they get to the river, destroys their transport to safety, and finally leaves them alone after suffering no damage and seemingly out of boredom. Spino is an S-tier dinosaur in the series, and I would have rather seen him come back in Dominion than have that dipshit claw monster in the finale. Speaking of that dorky D from Sony looking ass lizard, it's important to mention the use of practical effects in JP3. Jurassic Park as a franchise has always been lauded for its infusion of CGI and practical effects. I mean, the first movie won the Oscar for visual effects, the second one was nominated, and the third was on the shortlist for consideration. But I think the effects work in the third movie is severely underrated. The scene with the Spinosaurus in the plane is awesome, the finale in the water is visually striking, and the up-close visuals used for the raptors during the egg exchange are very well executed. The sequel trilogy, for the most part, moved to a strict CGI approach for the dinosaurs, so JP3 was really the swan song for Spielberg's original style for these movies and their effects. But what about the other dinos in this movie? Well, we get the red T-Rex, which looks like a drawing made by a 6-year-old wearing a Spitfire t-shirt, and a Pteranodon that looks the audience right in the eye like your mom finding an abnormally crusty sock in the hamper. This brings me to my final point, and probably the most divisive. This movie is funny.
Hi there.
Top 5 funniest moments. Number 1. 2.
Oh, Alan, hello.
3.
Down a cliff. I'm still alive, but I'm very badly injured.
4.
This is T-Rex P. How'd you get it?
Man, you're too sad. You need to get the fuck out of my business.
And 5.
What's a bad idea?
And this is where my preference truly guides the ship, because I believe popcorn movies are about overall entertainment value. It's why I can say Transformers is not a good movie, but it is a fun movie. Oh god. I think I might have just undone every point I made by comparing this to Transformers, even if the comparison becomes more apt the longer I think about it. This movie has great action sequences, an engaging main character, and enough laughs to fill in the blanks. I don't think some of the humor being unintended is a downside. I think it adds another dimension to the viewing experience. You can laugh at it, you can laugh with it, and still find yourself genuinely engaged at certain points. It's everything I want in a movie. and it managed to overcome a haphazard creative process, zero book-based source material, and impossible expectations from the studio and the fans, becoming a cult classic and, in one man's humble opinion, the most fun you can have watching dinosaurs on screen. And it's got twice as many dinosaur poop scenes as the first one.